Hello fellow stick figures and welcome back to the channel. Today I have another animated video talking about school drills this time. Everyone remembers them and you can just envision it in your mind. I'm going to be discussing all different types of drills today. First up on the list we have fire drills. Every school I can think of has this drill and everyone is sure to remember them. The fire drills, at least at my school, were always a mess. They consisted of annoyingly loud sirens going off in the school building issuing everyone to evacuate. These happened monthly, and every time there would always be that one kid who would be screaming or complaining about how loud the fire alarm was. Like, yes, it's loud, but you don't have to make my ears bleed more by screaming directly into my ear canal. Everyone was supposed to activate the building in an orderly fashion, and single file line. But for some reason, everyone was always pushing in, no one was in a line. It was just this big clump of people moving out the door. And outside was also a disaster. Teachers' expectations were that we would be in a single file lines and quiet, but that is not how it turned out. Like I mentioned earlier, there was just a big clump of people on the field, and people were talking like it was a social scene. We would wait about 5 minutes before going back inside the building, and just like coming out of the building, it was a mess going back in. All in all, I think they weren't the worst drills, just a bit annoying, especially if they interrupted your workflow when you might be working on an assignment or something at school. Enough about the fire drills, though. Next up, we have the lockdown drills. These were always very impractical, as the teacher would close all the windows, turn off the lights, and lock the classroom doors. Also, everyone in the classroom would have to shut up and sit in a corner. Like, what type of person trying to do nefarious acts would come to school on a Tuesday morning and be like, "Oh, I guess people aren't here today," when they darn know they hear two kids horsing around in the back of the room. And if you were in the hallways and a lockdown happened, you couldn't get to your classroom. You basically were just on your own, as you would have to hide in the bathroom and just pray you weren't gonna, These drills weren't the worst, though, except for the real thing, where I'm assuming it felt like a nightmare. But if you were talking about the drills, then yeah, they weren't the worst. Sure, they mess up your productivity groove, if you know what I'm saying, and you have to sit in the corner with a bunch of sweaty, stinky kids, or, classmates, but they aren't the worst. But I certainly know these would certainly not work in real dangerous situations. But that is, a little bit of a different topic. Next up on the list, we have the tornado drills. I don't have much experience with these since I was never most mandatory in my schools. We did do them sometimes, but not as much as other schools and other locations that were known for dealing with tornadoes or hurricanes. I do remember this one time in elementary school where a very bad storm was rolling through, so they had us do the drill. If you aren't aware, the teachers would have you huddle down on your knees and put your head down. It looked almost like you were trying to keep your heat. You would do this in the hallway, and they would jam-pack all the students next to everyone, and it was like a tightly sealed Amazon package. It was very close. So, like I mentioned before, a bad storm was coming through, and this wasn't your typical storm. No. This storm had such high chances of a tornado forming near our school. The police were at our school for safety. That's right, the police were there at our school. That's how serious this was. Everyone in the hallways was either really emotional since they thought they were going to die or got depressed mid-school year and didn't care anymore. Kind of weird. We sat in the hallway for multiple hours before we finally stopped and just went home, since it was practically the end of school day. Looking back on it, it wasn't very much of a life-threatening situation, and most people were just being dramatic. These drills did make pretty good sense, though, especially when you stop and think about it. I mean, what are you going to do if a tornado came at your school? Because I know for a fact that none of us are out running a tornado, and going outside would just be a lot more dangerous than staying inside the literal building made out of concrete. These drills did disrupt your learning focus when they were actually just drills, but not to the level of the other drills. So for that and the fact that they are actually somewhat goodly handled, I'm going to say that they were pretty good job from the school system. Good job, horrible school system. You finally did something right. And finally on the list, we have a nuclear bomb threat. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this one. I never did this drill, and I'm going to assume that most people have never practiced this drill either, which makes it hard to rate. But I'm pretty sure that if someone bombed our school with nuclear weapons, I would just accept my death, instead of trying to duck and cover a little nuclear warhead. Apparently, they would have the students hide under the desks in classrooms, which obviously would probably not be too effective against a bomb that could possibly blow up in an area the size of a big city. Of course, that depends on which type of nuclear nuke it is. But if I were to rate this, I'd say it's a pretty useless drill, which I assume is why most schools don't practice it, but I still say that the drill's pretty bad. Alright, well, that's the end of the video. So comment if you think that any of my opinions are unjustified. And make sure to subscribe and like the video. So, yeah. Also, about my upload schedule, I think that I'm going to be uploading more and a different variety of content. Right now, I'm just uploading mostly animations, but I think I'm gonna try and do some more gaming content and other stuff like that and spread out a little bit more. So, yeah.